let me take the fillet command. So here we have, now here we go in the home tab. There is a modified panel, and in the modified panel you have got these tools over here. You can see that, here we have this fillet, chamfer, and blend. So we can do all the three of them, but we'll be first considering these two things. So we have a fillet option. So you can see there's a curve over here. So let's do how it works. So go for a length or a line option. Let me create a line, and let me create a line of a length, in fact. So let's say I start from 1,1, and at the rate, let's say 5 units, right? Because you have learned it quite good, how to create lines and by coordinate systems. So you have this line that is that just you have created. You can see the dimension of it. So just I'm putting a dimension for reference, a 5 unit length here and a 5 unit length here, right? So I want to create a curve here at this particular corner point. So I go with the fillet tool, which I found it over here, or I can select it from the toolbar. Now you have to find out where it is. Here it is, or you can basically get it from the command F, or you can use the modify menu, and use the fillet. You have to see the chamfer and the fillet here. Where the chamfer is, the fillet is, right? So let me go into the command first. F is the tool, alias shortcut. So there are a lot of options: polyline, radius, trim, and multiple. So let us cover it, because I'm going to cover the fillet and chamfer together, because they have a very similar application, and they're very lovely applications. They're very commonly used in drafting, and a lot of time I use it for trimming purpose also. So I'll show you how I use it for the trimming purpose in my drafting operations. Okay. So, but let us first of all focus about what is a fillet, how it works. So first of all, you need to see that initially the mode is trim and the radius is 0. So set up a radius. Let's say I want to have a radius of 1 unit over here. Select the first line, select the second line, the curve is created. Now what you see that, so this dimension lines are for reference. So the corner point is, trimmed, and the fillet is done. So now if you, let me erase this dimension so that you can understand it better, right? It was just for your understanding how the fillet, the dimension was. So I go with the fillet tool, I can select it from the toolbar or from the ribbon. So here we have, so take a radius. Let's say I take a radius of 1 unit, and the first object is this. It is not relevant about which object is you are taken. You can take any of the object as first object, and the second object is here. Now what is happening? It is trimming the corner and putting a curve at the corner. So if you want to keep this corner point and create a fillet, for that you have to go with the trim mode, which is right now the mode is trim, but you can change the mode to no trim. So if you click no trim, what will happen? You can have the set the radius to 1, which is 0 right now, and what will happen is there will be a fillet that will be created. So we select this first line, but the corner point will remain like this. Now sometimes you require this corner point, and sometimes it is not required. So this is how it works. Okay. Now let's say, what are the other options? The fillet. So you have this undo option, and the multiple. So let me have some circles here, because that is something interesting that I can show you how the fillet happens in the circle. I'm creating a random circle over here. I'm creating a polyline over here, right? Let me create a bigger polyline, PL. Let's say here, like this. Let's make it interesting. And let me create a rectangle also. Rectangle is also a polyline. Okay, rectangle is also a polyline because it's single object entity. So there's a line, there's a circle, there's a polyline, there's a rectangle, which is a polyline. Okay, so I use the fillet option, and the radius is 0 right now. The mode is trim. The radius, let's say, put it as 1 unit. I select this, and the fillet option is over. Now I can do a fillet between the circle, select this, and you can have the fillet option here. So now what happens when you take the polyline? Now this is basically the fillet option. Now if you select a polyline here, so what will happen? Take the radius as 1 unit, which is there. So it will, all the corner points will be filleted. Similarly, in case of a polyline, so if you take a polyline, all the corner points will be filleted. But if you don't take the polyline option of the fillet, so here AutoCAD gives you a provision of filleting the corners, individual corners that you wish to do. Okay, that is all corners. Since it will remain a polyline, but it gives you an independency of filleting the corners. Right. So let's come to the some of the last option, which is the multiple option. It's very simple. That means you can, now what is happening, it only single time you can use the fillet command. Again you have to use the fillet command to do the fillet of the other objects. So here we have first object. So the first object, so to the multiple option, select. Alright, let me see. Okay, fillet. Now the multiple are selected over here, and you go here. Right, I think the radius is 0 right now. That's the reason it is not happening. So let's say I go with a radius of 1 unit. So you have to have always a look at what the radius is all about. The moment you do undo, it will be done into the previous setting. So now we go with the multiple, and now you can go with the first object. Now you can see you can keep on doing multiple filleting of an object. So here is a polyline, but you can. So this is a very interesting tool that you can use. Now let me give you an example where I use it for joining two corner points. So here we are. If you have two lines which are not joining together, so here if I want to join it, so here I have a radius 1. So what will happen? This particular line will come and join it and make a radius of 1. If they are not having corners also, the corner will be made. So what is this case if they intersect like this? So if you have a fillet, if you have a radius, it's a 1, and if you select this, so it will also create it in the corner point. So this is the now again. So if the mode is like the trim mode, if we have let's say, let us go to this example now. So the two lines are not meeting at a corner, right? But it can meet at a corner if the radius is, let's say, 0. So in this case, what will happen? The two objects will meet at a corner point like this, right? So if the lines are crossing each other, so if you have a fillet and radius 0, the two corner points can meet at a point like this. That is radius 0. Now, what happens? Can I join these two corner points if they are intersecting? Let's see. Radius is 0. Yeah, I can do it. But there is a setting. If you are, let's say, if you are having two lines like this, you select it over here, you select it over here, it does work. But if the trim mode, let's say, if the trim mode is in the no trim mode, so I think I'm sure about it will not work, right? So the no trim mode, the fillet tool will not work if they are not joining at a corner point. That is for sure. So this is all about filleting object, that is making a curve inside a polyline or an arc or a circle between two circles, and it can be between any object. So if you have a polygon, let's say have a 6 side, let's create a random polygon. So now what happens? Fillet. So you can have a polyline. The radius is 1. So you have the selective polyline. So let's put the radius first. The radius is 1 unit. So you have this polyline, and you can see that because there's a no trim option. So how you can say that what is the mode? So you can see the mode is no trim. So you can always put it in a trim mode, right? and then you have the polyline radius is 0, right, and you can have it 1, and you can see. Now if you go with the polyline option, so it will entirely make the all the corners will be rounded up. So this is filleting, right? So I think you have understood what the fillet works. Now let's come to the next option where we have the chamfering option. Chamfering is so these are all the options for filleting. So let's come to the chamfering option. Now chamfering is there are two modes. One is the distance mode and one is the angle. So we will discuss about it, how the chamfer works. So you can see that you have two lines in which the wedge, this line is there. You have to give distance 1 and distance 2. The line is chamfered. So similarly, there's a polyline over here, so we can discuss about it, how it works. So it has two modes. Either you can give the chamfering distances D1 and D2. That means if there is an object like this, you want to create a chamfer, give the distance that the chamfer line is. So this is a chamfer line. The start of the chamfer line is from the corner point, the distance of the start of the chamfer point from the corner point, distance to the end of the chamfer line to the corner point. So if you mention it, the two distances of the chamfer line can be created. But let's say you know the distance 1, but you don't know the distance 2. You can give the angle. Then also you can basically create a chamfer. So let's take an example again. So I create a L again. So at the rate I create a bigger one, 5 comma I take a line command 1 comma 1 at the rate 5 comma 0, right. So at the rate 0 comma 1, at the rate minus 4 comma 0, at the rate 0 comma 5, at the rate minus 1 comma 0, and C controls. Now let's take a chamfer. Let's say I want to put a chamfer over here. So this is the first line, second line. The distance I want to have two units here. The chamfer line starts from here and at a 1 unit over here. Okay. So let's do the chamfer and see how the chamfer command works. So chamfer command can be invoked from the home tab, the modified panel. So here we have the chamfer tool. So just below the fillet tool, there's a chamfer tool over here. And similarly, you can use the chamfer tool from the modified toolbar. So you can easily identify the chamfer tool from here. So come down, here is the chamfer tool. And similarly, you can write CHA for the chamfer and see the command is invoked. Or you can go with the modified menu and you have the chamfer. So here we go. And now we have the chamfer tool CHA. Now, initially the distance is 0 comma 0. Let's fix the distance. The distance 1 is 1 unit and distance 2 is 2 units. Let's take it like this. So the first line over here is this line I want to take and create a chamfer with this line. So you can see that. Let's take a dimension over here. So here the dimension is distance 1 is 1 unit and distance 2 is 2 unit. So let's keep it like this, chamfer. Now again, distance 1 is 1 unit. The first object you select will determine the distance 1 and the second object will determine the distance 2. Very simple. So now let's say you have, you want to change the distance. Let's say I want to put it, now for the new chamfer, I want to put 1 and 1. So now you can first object select, you select, so it would be a uniform distance. So this chamfer like this. So now you want to create a chamfer at this point where you want to have a distance of 1 and 1, distance 1 1, distance 2 1. So this is the first line and this is the second line. So that you can see that how the object set chamfer. Right. So now here we are going to discuss the next option, which is the angle option. So I'll use the angle option here. I want to create a chamfer at a distance of 1 unit from here at an angle of 30 degrees from this line. Right. Let's see how it works. So I go with the angle option. Now here the chamfer length on the first line is 1 unit and the angle that I want to create with the first line, that the chamfer line, the angle of the chamfer line in the first line is 30 degrees. So I select this object and select this object. So now there are two things. Now, if you take the dimension of it, so you will find that this is the chamfer distance 1, and if you take the angle, so you find that this is exactly 30 degree that you have mentioned. So this is how it works. Let's take another example. I draw a random line over here. So I go with a chamfer and I go with an angle. So you have two methods now. Either we have a distance method and angle method. You can toggle between these two methods. So if you want to go with the distance method, take the D, and now you are into the distance method, right? So click on the D and click on the first distance as 1 and the second distance as 3. So you go over here, right? So it works like this. So this is the 1 unit, this is 3 unit. And then you can change the angle. Let's say you want to have an angle here. So you go with the chamfer method. At this corner point, you want to use the angle method. You can always change the method. So you can click on the method, you can click on the angle. Again, you can click on the angle and say, okay, chamfer length on the first is 3, let's say 2 units. So you want to create the chamfer line from the 2 unit from this corner point at an angle of, let's say, 45 degree, or let's say 60 degree. I create 60 degree. So if I select this line and this is, so you find it that this length is exactly the same that you have mentioned, right? So exactly 2 units. So this is how you work on single entity, single objects. But if it comes to a polyline, I'm going to take an example of a polyline. So I go with the chamfer, and I have a distance of 2 and 60. So I can take it individually. Now I can see that the polyline, the corner points are getting the chamfer over here. Single objects. So I can do the same thing. I can select this line and the same thing can happen. But now I want to do it uniform chamfering in all the 4 corners. So I go for the chamfer. I go with the distance. Let's say I go with a distance of 0.5 and 0.5. Distance 1.5, distance 2. Second chamfer distance is 0.5. And now I select the option called polyline. So what will happen? It will give the chamfering at all the corner points at the same time. Now, similar as a fillet, the chamfer having a multiple option. So let's say I want to do chamfering at randomly to many points. So go for a chamfer option and go for a multiple option, right? Now select it, keep on doing it. So now you can keep working on chamfering on various objects. Now what I talked to you about a tip shortcut where I am going to join the objects, right? But let us take the trim option. It is similar to what is there in AutoCAD fillet tool that we used it just a few minutes back. So if I use in the no trim option, and I take a distance, let's say 0.5, 0.5. So again, the corner line will remain over here as it is, and a chamfer line will be created. Chamfer line is an individual line, right? So I again go with the chamfer. I take the distance as 2, 2, that is 2, distance 1 as 2, and distance 2 as 2. Select the object, and now you can see that the line remains over here where the chamfer is created. Now, what happens if 2 lines are not connected at a corner point? So if it is like this, I mean, they are not connected over here. So I can go to the chamfer tool, and I want to connect it at this point. First of all, I have to see the trim option is in the trim mode, and in the distance, if I put, let's say, distance 1, 0, distance 2, 0, so it will connect at the corner point. So this is something that we can do similarly that we have done the fillet tool. Okay, fine. So I think anything left in the chamfer, so you can have the trim, angle, distance, polyline, and do multiple. So I think we are at the end of the modification tool, and let's do some ortho mode and snap mode. We can do next, but let's talk about the Ortho Mode because that's very important that I've been using it. So what Ortho Mode does it, so to select an Ortho Mode, you can select from the status bar this icon over here at the bottom. So if you click on this, the Ortho Mode is off. If you click on this again, so you can see the blue icon over here. So what happens when you do, so once you go for a draw tool like this, so you can see in the 90 degrees and 0, 180, the objects are created. Similarly, if you move it, all movement are restricted to orthogonal, right? So you cannot move it normally, but it is restricted. So ortho gives you a restriction to move in 0, 90, 180 and 270. But if the Ortho Mode is off, now you can see that you can move it anywhere. You can draw a line which is at any angle. So this is the use of Ortho. So the next sessions we will be doing the snap mode and setting snap and object snap, right? So fine.